Welcome back, everybody. For today's deep dives, we're strapping ourselves into a rocket and setting a course for Jupiter. Well, more specifically, one of its most intriguing moons.
It's Europa time.
It is. We've got a treasure trove of articles here from NASA's Europa Clipper mission website.
And trust me, there's some seriously cool stuff in those. We're talking about an ocean moon, folks. An ocean moon.
And not just any ocean, right? This one's bigger than all of Earth's oceans combined. That's what I've heard, at least.
You heard right. That's what makes Europa such a tantalizing target for, well, everyone who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered, are we alone?
So the Europa Clipper mission, set to launch next month. This is all about figuring out if life could actually exist in that massive hidden ocean.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But to get there, we got to break it down. Imagine this. Europa, this ice-encased world orbiting around the biggest planet in our solar system.
Jupiter, our very own gas giant.
Exactly. And that gas giant isn't just sitting there looking pretty. Jupiter's gravity is intense, and it pulls on Europa, creating this constant tidal tug of war.
Tidal, like the ocean tides here on Earth.
Exactly the same principle. But on Europa, this tidal force is so strong that it actually creates friction inside the moon. And friction, well, that equals heat.
So even though Europa is far from the sun, it's got its own internal heating system going on, courtesy of Jupiter.
You got it. And that heat, that's what keeps all that water, more water than our own planet has, in a liquid state beneath miles of ice.
Mind-blowing. So we've got liquid water, check. But what about the other things life needs? I'm no astrobiologist, but I'm pretty sure you need more than just water, right?
You're right, you do. You need the building blocks of life, those essential chemicals, and some kind of energy source. And this is where things get really interesting. We think Europa might have both.
Okay, now you have to elaborate on that. How can a world so far from the sun possibly have what it takes to support life?
Think about those incredible deep-sea hydrothermal vents we have right here on Earth. No sunlight down there, but life thrives, fueled by chemicals and heat from the planet's interior.
You're saying Europa might have something similar, like alien tube worms clinging to underwater vents, spewing out who knows what.
It's a possibility. We don't have direct proof yet, of course.
It's sounding more and more like a sci-fi movie every minute. But how do we actually study something that's hidden under miles of ice on a moon millions of miles away?
Well, that's where the Europa Clipper comes in, and let me tell you, this spacecraft is going to rewrite the textbooks.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's this Clipper packing that's got everyone so excited?
For starters, it's not landing on Europa. That's a whole other level of engineering challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how do we study an ocean moon from afar?
It's all about the flybys. Europa Clipper is going to be whizzing around Jupiter, dipping in close to Europa, almost 50 close flybys over its mission.
50. Okay, that's a lot of data gathering runs, but it's got to be a long trip out to Jupiter every time, right?
Not quite. See, once it's in orbit around Jupiter, Europa Clipper will be using the planet's gravity to kind of slingshot itself towards Europa and back again.
Clever. So it's less like a leisurely cruise and more like a cosmic roller coaster, swooping in for a closer look at Europa each time.
You got it. And on each of those flybys, Europa Clipper is going to be busy. It's got this incredible suite of 9 different science instruments, each designed to study a different aspect of Europa.
9. Okay, we don't have time to go through all of them, but what are some of the heavy hitters? What's got the science team most excited?
Well, remember how we talked about that hidden ocean? One of the biggest questions is how thick is that ice shell hiding it?
Yeah, that's got to make a huge difference, right? A thin shell, maybe there's more interaction between the ocean and the surface.
Exactly. And that's where reason comes in, one of Europa Clipper's coolest tools. It's an ice-penetrating radar.
So it's literally seeing through the ice.
Pretty much. It sends out radio waves that can penetrate the ice and bounce back, giving us a detailed map of the ice shell's thickness and structure. We might even be able to see if there are pockets of water within the ice itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about confirming the ocean exists, but actually starting to understand its shape, its depth, maybe even what the bottom of that ocean looks like.
You're getting it. And that's just one instrument. Then there's the magnetometer, which measures Europa's magnetic field.
Okay, how does that help us study an ocean?
Believe it or not, Europa's ocean creates its own magnetic field, a faint one, but measurable. And by studying the variations in that field, we can learn about the ocean's salinity, its depth, even how it interacts with Jupiter's magnetic field.
So it's like using a giant super-sensitive metal detector to probe the secrets of a hidden ocean. That's wild.
Space exploration is full of surprises like that. And speaking of incredible tech, we can't forget about the cameras.
Right. Got to see this alien moon up close. What kind of resolution are we talking about here?
The Europa Imaging System, or EIS for short, is going to blow previous missions out of the water. We'll be getting images 10 times sharper than anything we've ever seen of Europa before.
So clear enough to see what, like, alien fish swimming around?
Well,
Okay, maybe not that good, but seriously, what will we be looking for in those images?
think big picture and small details. EIS will be looking for signs of geological activity, like those plumes of water vapor that might be erupting from the ocean. It can spot changes in color or texture on the surface, hinting at what's happening below, and it can identify potential landing sites for future missions.
Future missions. So Europa Clipper is just the first step.
Oh yeah, this is about laying the groundwork for even more ambitious missions to come, but that's getting a bit ahead of ourselves.
Fair enough. Back to the Clipper and its instruments. You mentioned plumes. Is there a way to study those directly? Like, what are they even made of?
That's where the ultraviolet spectrograph, or UVS, comes in. If we're lucky enough to catch a plume in action, this instrument can analyze the light passing through it, telling us about its composition. We're talking about actually getting a glimpse into the chemistry of Europa's ocean without even touching down.
Talk about a sneak peek. Are there any other instruments on this mission that are must-mentions?
Definitely. There's one called eThemis, the thermal imaging system. It's basically a heat sensor mapping out the temperature of Europa's surface.
And that tells us what exactly?
Lots of things. Hotter regions could indicate thinner ice, recent geological activity, or even places where the ocean's heat is closer to the surface.
So it's like Europa has this whole secret life going on under its icy shell, and Europa Clipper is going in with a whole arsenal of gadgets to listen in, take pictures, and basically unravel its mysteries.
That's a great way to put it. Every flyby is going to be like opening a new present, revealing more clues about this incredible world. We're talking about answering some of humanity's biggest questions here.
Like, are we alone in the universe? I mean, that's got to be the ultimate goal here, right? To find out if life exists somewhere else out there.
That's the big one, no doubt. And with Europa Clipper, we're not just looking for any life. We're looking for life that might have originated completely independently from life on Earth.
Okay, yeah, that's even more mind-blowing. So we find evidence of life in Europa's ocean, life that's got nothing to do with our own planet's history. What then? Like, how do we even wrap our heads around that?
That's a question for the philosophers, maybe? But from a scientific perspective, it would be the discovery of the century, maybe of all time.
No kidding. It'd be huge. But let's get back to the mission itself. Europa Clipper is gathering all this data, painting us this picture of a potentially habitable world. What are the next steps?
Well, while Europa Clipper is a crucial step, it's not equipped to directly detect life itself. It's about characterizing the habitability, understanding the environment. But what it finds will pave the way for future missions.
So are we talking about sending something that could actually land on the surface, drill through the ice, and get samples directly from the ocean? Because that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel.
It might sound like science fiction, but the technology to make that happen isn't so far-fetched anymore. And the data Europa Clipper sends back, that'll be essential for designing those future missions.
I'm trying to imagine the kind of life we might find down there. It's got to be weird, right? Adapted to this cold, dark, high-pressure environment. Nothing like anything we've ever seen before.
That's the beauty of it. We have no idea. It could be microbial life, tiny organisms clinging to hydrothermal vents, or maybe, just maybe, it's something bigger, more complex. We just don't know, and that's what makes this exploration so exciting.
It's both exciting and a little bit terrifying at the same time. Like, what if we're not ready for what we find?
That's a whole other discussion, but I think it's a good problem to have. It means we're pushing the boundaries of our knowledge, venturing into the unknown, and who knows, maybe what we discover on Europa will teach us not only about the potential for life elsewhere in the universe, but also about ourselves, about the very nature of life itself.
And that's a thought to end on. This entire deep dive has been incredible. Europa, you are one mysterious moon. But thanks to missions like Europa Clipper, we're getting closer and closer to unlocking your secrets.
It's been a pleasure exploring with you today.
To all our listeners out there, if you want to dive even deeper into the world of Europa and the incredible Europa Clipper mission, be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the fascinating articles we talked about today. And until next time, keep looking up at the stars and never stop asking questions.